everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson. I'll be your host on this one. And once again, I'm joined by Scott and Joris. Guys, how are you doing this evening?
Very well, as always. I can't believe it. This is the second Trident in a row where, this might be the start of a consistent run.
Ooh, okay. You're known as the person that jinxed things, of course. So there we go. Next week, someone of us will be sick or whatever, I'm sure.
But maybe it's because transfer window's open. Maybe because transfer window's open, we're putting ourselves in the shop window. Good performance here or there. Who knows? Who knows who's listening? Who knows might snap us up?
You just want a new contract, don't you?
Yeah, desperate for one. Don't want to be shipped out anywhere on loan, especially not. We will obviously talk about the transfer window as we are recording this in the kind of with the last kind of legs of that going on. Not too much has happened in Belgium, but we're going to talk about where we think some action should happen, teams we want to see do stuff, and kind of teams we're concerned about that haven't done stuff. Before we get to that, let's quickly run over the fixtures from the weekend. On Friday night, Ghent travelled to Standard Liège, and it was the Wilfried Kangas show. He absolutely just demolished them. That one finished Ghent 4, Standard Liège 0. Raal, they lost 2-1 to St. Truden. A certain Mr. Juve scored on his debut. Not a bad way to announce yourself at your new club. Raal were the only side in the bottom four to lose this weekend as well, guys. Club, it looked like they were going to do it again, didn't it? They beat Zoltava by 4-3, but I was like, blimey, Lecco's going to have a heart attack if they throw away another win in that one. That was a good one. Leuven, they drew 0-0 at home to Union. Played pretty well, to be fair. That was an entertaining 0-0 draw, as 0-0 draws can go. Antwerp have kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit. The Oosting effect seems to be backfiring maybe slightly. Charleroi went there. They won 2-0. They keep on marching on. Genk were 1-0 up until the late minutes against Cercle Bruges, and Genk 1-0 into the 90th minute. We all know what's going to happen. That one finished 1 goal apiece. Anderlecht against Stender. Incredible light show from Anderlecht. Really put on a show pre-match. Shame the players couldn't match it. That one finished 0-0. We all thought that would be the end of Mr. Besnik Hasi, but he's still there clinging on for dear life. We will talk about that in a short while as well. Mechelen were losing 1-0 to Westerlo at home late on, but then Kevin and Rabti came off the bench to make that 1-1. I kind of earmarked that we were going to be talking about Hasi being sacked, so we may as well just talk about Hasi anyway, even though he hasn't been sacked, and react to that. And there was a crisis meeting on Monday. I feel like I've lost count of how many crisis meetings Anderlecht have probably had since we started the podcast, but it's definitely at least been one a season, maybe even 2 a season. I'm not quite sure, maybe more. I think it's fair to say we were all skeptical about Hasi taking the job full-time or even part-time last season. And I don't know about you guys, but when he came in for Hubert, I was like, this is just it's a stopgap. It's fine. You've got an experienced guy, knows the Belgian Pro League, just been sacked from Mechelen, who are below you in the table. So that's a little bit weird, but okay, whatever. He can have to the end of the season. Obviously, they're in the cup final, and you're like, if they win the cup final, he'll probably get the job. They didn't win the cup final. He probably won't get the job. He got the job. He's still here. And it's almost February. He's going to be managing them in February more than likely, isn't he? Like, unless something crazy happens between now and Sunday. Is it 1st of February on Sunday? It is. I got that one right. I don't know how he's still there. And I don't think he is the main problem at Anderlecht. I think there's lots and lots of problems that we've spoken about for a long, long time. But yeah, how shocked were you guys to hear that they had a crisis meeting on Monday and then them not sack him? Because I just felt like he was their scapegoat and he was their chance. Because now the fans are rightly frustrated, and I completely kind of understand their frustration, and I'm completely on board with them as a fan base being pretty pissed off with how things have gone basically since they sacked Vincent Kompany, to be honest. I think they can kind of rightly point to that and be like, what the hell were we doing from then on? But they're obviously changing their tune as well. They're like, well, if we'll kind of deflect away from Hasi and let's look at the rest of the kind of apparatus at the club. So I think they made a mistake by not shielding themselves with the sacking of Hasi, and now a lot more questions are going to be asked of them, which is right, because they should be. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. And is anyone going to stick up for him and think actually he deserves to stay there? By the look of your faces, I'm predicting that you probably won't. Maybe Joris is, yeah. Okay, we'll start with Scott then. I want to hear this.
Well, we shouldn't forget as well that Besnik Hasi was basically on his way to Cercle Bruges until he got a phone pretty much mid-flight. on his way back from his holiday home to sign a contract at Cercle. Until he got a phone call from Anderlecht saying, "Do you want to come back here?" And he ended up getting off the plane in Brussels and going to Lotto Park and signing a contract there instead. It literally happened that way. I mean, I suppose the surprising thing is kind of how long he's been there. I mean, I think the form recently, 5 points from the last 18 kind of tells its own story, and that's really where the pressure has kind of come from now. But if you look at his overall record, and this obviously includes Europe, everything since March of last year, played 42, won 18, lost 15, isn't brilliant. But then this season, of course, at the moment they're sitting fourth. After 22 games, won 10, lost 6, 36 points. So they're 10 points off the top, which becomes 5 points if you half it and it stays like that. They're 6 points away from dropping out of playoff one completely, which isn't necessarily... they're not safe from that at all either, which I think is why this panic is obviously increasing. They're now 8 points behind Club, who are sitting in third. So there's a real panic and realisation that actually fourth might be the best it's going to get this season. And for them, I think probably third is the bare minimum, I would imagine. And there's a dawning realisation that's in serious doubt without a huge improvement. So I can understand the panic. I think he's lost most of the fan base. I think a lot of them have decided, enough. It's not going to get any better. I think the light show this weekend, courtesy of well done Stromae, by the way, for those of you who don't know, the very famous Belgian rapper and hip hop artist who remixed Gran Yo-Yo's tune, the famous Ali 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 from 1985. Nice little light show to celebrate that. Normally these things are pretty god awful, actually, these sorts of light shows, but the choreography that went with all this I actually thought was really great. And of course, in true Anderlecht fashion, they followed that up by not only not managing to beat Dender, but not managing to score against them either, which just ramped the pressure up. So it was kind of the perfect storm. You do wonder what the plan is, though. Should Hasi be sacked? When you go down these roads as a club, no matter who you are, you've got to, sack the manager and just hope whoever it is that maybe comes in gives you a bounce, and that change in itself miraculously sorts everything. Sometimes does work through the sheer weight of somebody's personality, but it's not that common, as we know. So if they are going to go down the road of removing him, which may yet happen still within the next couple of weeks, depending on the circumstances, what's the plan there? Who's the genius that's going to come in and get so much more out of this group of players? Rumours doing the rounds at the moment, worth highlighting this just for the sake of conversation. Rumours doing the rounds that a certain Torsten Fink has been unofficially sounded out by certain parties. Which, because he's available, is, I suppose, understandable. Debatable as to whether that would make any difference. But yeah, the grit and the determination and the fire, all of those things that I suppose has a slight reputation for, kind of seems to have gone. And despite them making, I think, arguably a little bit of progress in the earlier part of the season, I think, in terms of their performance levels, it has kind of petered out for them. You look at their schedule coming up as well, the next 4 games, it is tough. It's Standard, Antwerp, Genk, and then Antwerp again in the first leg of the semi-final. So it's not an ideal schedule for somebody who has to start winning games, otherwise he's going to be gone. I think it's probably true as well that they need a good win in the Clasico this weekend. Whether that game finishes at all is something that we'll wait and see what happens there. Standard, of course, have their own problems as well, a side that can't win back-to-back games despite a squad that does have improved quality, but Vincent Everard's not able to get much of a tune out of them at the moment either. So this game, in many ways, from a neutral's perspective, is really, really well set up. Does he deserve to be sacked? Honestly, for me, no at the moment, because I don't see the alternatives. But they're hoping, obviously, that in making a change, should that come, that that gathers enough points to at least finish third, which definitely is in serious doubt. So I understand the quandary.
I mainly understand they still don't have any alternatives, because that was one of the main reasons to prolong his contract. Who else would do it? But what is it, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months later, they still didn't find anyone, and he's not doing a good job. So well done, Anderlecht. Indeed, that's maybe one sentence again, also describing or picturing what you already painted as well as a picture. Like that it's not the only problem still at Anderlecht for sure. As Ben was alluding to, of course, I'm not an Anderlecht fan, so for me, I'll be happy if he stays longer, but not for the right reasons. And I mean, I need to have some joy out of the season also. I have to say that. It's not that my own team is going to give me anything. But yeah, that's a completely other topic. But yeah, I mean, very wild that he's still there with all the results, and that they got him, that they prolonged him, that they didn't sack him in after getting knocked out of Europe in the before reaching the league stages. Ends league phases and anything like that. It's quite, yeah. I mean, and then of course, ultimately, he had a good run in November. I think it was the one good run with the victories against Club Brugge and Union, who now still keep him at the helm, I guess. I think otherwise he would already be out. And of course, the win against Genk in the cup as well. So they're still in the cup, and that's maybe the main source this season as well of any potential success. Again, we'll have to see how everything goes, but like, I think I was the first one among us saying, like, I don't think that game against Sandar, the game of the I'm 99.9% certain that this game will not be played out on the pitch, unfortunately, because both fan bases are very unhappy at the moment as well. I think one or the other side might, or maybe both even, I won't exclude that option, but we'll create a nice atmosphere, I guess, because it's also the first Standard Anderlecht game that Anderlecht fans are back welcome after the last incident as well, which was, ironically, the last game, I believe it was, of Mazou at the helm of Anderlecht. That could return, become a full circle moment, or like a repetition of history, at least there. Worth noting as well, like Hasi's also outside of the aforementioned Mazou, the Anderlecht manager since company that has gotten the least points, and it's marginally close. There's not that many other ones, of course, either, but with none of them, Anderlecht were really happy, and he's not amongst the top ones. There. So that's. Not speaking. His record is not speaking in his favor, and the upcoming games are indeed tough fixtures. Most of them, also many of them away. I personally don't think he will sit there much longer. Now, in recent weeks, he's 2 points out of the last 4 games. That's not enough, obviously, and I'm not sure if they even are looking upwards. I think that's even the worst part. They might not even be looking upwards, but more feel like, okay, I don't share that feeling despite everything, because I think other sides, no other side is really picking up form enough, but like they might have counted themselves certain of reaching the Champions playoffs too early. I do think they're actually still quite secure, like I said, but even in there, of course, they want to be in a good position to reach some European football out of it, and that's, of course, slipping. Other teams are slowly, maybe, but creeping closer and overtaking them in some cases. But that hasn't happened that much. There's a lot of teams that are not completely in form underneath them, luckily. So, like there's one informed side in Charleroi, which we will touch on a bit later as well. Again, I think, but that I think there's more the fear from behind than looking upwards, even, and that's the more worrying thing for anyone around the club, I think. And I mean, there are definitely some issues, and I don't think anyone expected Hasi to be still in post currently. Even Anderlecht fans, even the most positive, maybe even Anderlecht fans. Strange to say, of course, as well. But I do think he finally has run his course at Anderlecht now. And when who would be the new manager after that? That's something they hopefully internally do know a bit more than I alluded to in my first at the start of my monologue here. So let's see how that goes. Think supposedly being one of the names, but there's probably more names as well, but I don't know. I would not be surprised by that either.
Joris mentioned the European failure there, and I think that's actually interesting in this whole mix as well, because not only was that really disastrous for Anderlecht, it really was, from a financial perspective and the profile perspective, really, really bad. Just, a Belgian football and cultural perspective and the coefficient, that was just a nightmare, really, particularly in a year when a Belgian club, stood a reasonable chance of going deep in that tournament. It was just such a great opportunity, and to have messed it up the way that they did, I think was, just, I mean, even now when I think about that, it's still really, really bad. The other thing as well is, I don't think it would cost Anderlecht a lot of money to let Hasi go either, from a contractual perspective. So that's another thing that makes it tempting. So if you're going to make the change, it's not financially damaging really to them in a meaningful way either. So that makes, if you're going to twist, it makes that reaction an easier one to make. One other factor that might just have bought him a little bit of extra time was the fact that not everybody was able to attend that crisis meeting, I think, as well. I think all of the sporting department, some of the executives weren't actually there as well. So that might be another, gently peripheral factor in the decision making there. I thought that was interesting too. But Besnik knows the club. He knows what's expected, and he has more or less said himself this week that things have to be better. Very interesting that they're protecting the players, I think, now, guys, as well. They've already confirmed they won't be making any players available for the pre-match press duties coming into the game this weekend. So the players have been told, you've got to up your game and do better. The other way of looking at this, of course, is Hasi's been set up for a bit of a fall. They're protecting the players, which in a way is not a bad thing, but they're increasing the pressure on him because he's going to have to take more questions, which, guess what they're going to be about? They're going to be about him, of course. So it's very, very interesting narrative coming into this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. There was just there was a moment in that game against Ender where I was like, he's gone. I was like, this is that moment he's been sacked. I don't know if people remember it, but it was like they had an attack against, like they won the ball back really high up the pitch because Dender were trying to play out from the back or something stupid like that. It's like, what you're doing, why are you playing out the back? You're bottom of the table. Like, you do not have the capabilities to do that. Clearly, first shot is like saved by Gautier Gallon, falls to Bertaccini, like cleared off the line. Then they get another chance and it hits the post and it gets cleared. And you're like, that's it. Like, if they're not going to score that chance, he's gone. Like, he's definitely going to be sacked. So, yeah, there was that moment. And you guys mentioned Europe, and I was just like, just have a quick look, just to like remind me who they got knocked out of. And I think they lost in Europa League to Hacken, who then fell into the Conference League and didn't win a single game in the Conference League. And you're like, that is the fact that you had the chance to get into Europa League, you failed there, then you fell into the thing. And like, fair play, you lost to Athens. Like, Athens aren't a bad side, let's be fair. But like, if you've got two bites of the cherry when it comes to European football, like, you should be able to make it into there, especially a team like Anderlecht. And I think you mentioned there, Scott, about like the players being told to kind of up their game. And I guess the real question is, how much can they up their game? Like, are the players good enough to up their game? And that's kind of, I look through that team and I was just having a look now, and like, apart from the obvious ones like De Cat, like you're watching someone like De Cat and you're like, that's an exciting player for the future. Like, there's clearly a massive, massive talent there. who's obviously now injured because he's probably playing too much senior level football for his age at the moment. He keeps getting pushed back into the side because he's so important, which is just crazy as a teenager. And then Angelo as well. Like, Angelo's been entertaining to watch, but outside of that, you're kind of like, nah, like, I don't know. Like, I did not see when Marco Cana was playing for that relegation Kortrijk side. If you'd told me he'd be the starting centre back for Anderlecht, I'd have been like, I can't see that. Especially when he's taking pot shots from 40 yards against Dender and smashing it into Rosed. And I was just like, what are you doing? Like, of all the people to be doing, like, you know, when you're just like, it's just scrambled brains at that point. Like, when your centre back thinks he can shoot from 40 yards, you know that there's this kind of everything's gone wrong at that point. So yeah, I'm buzzing for the Classico, not for the right reasons, obviously, because it's just going to be like, it's two teams who desperately need to win, two fan bases that are incredibly pissed off. Like, it's set up to be great. I mean, I have like, I don't like the name Classico. I think because of watching too much Bundesliga, and it always big up the Classico, and it's always crap. Like, Dortmund Bayern Munich was always a rubbish game whenever you watched it. Like, I just feel like Bayern Munich would just roll Dortmund and everyone would hype it up and nothing would happen. Whereas this is two distinctly average teams who need a win going up against each other. That's a Classico. That's what we want to see. We want to see a bit of trash football, but like the pressure really, really on them, and the fans kind of baying for their own team's blood. It's going to be the first time they're baying for their own team's blood and not each other's blood. So they might just all be in agreement. Like, let's just not let this game play out because we both don't want to see it.
It's kind of, I think it's kind of sad, isn't it, guys? Because, you know, as a fixture, Anderlecht against Standard has real cultural and historical significance in Belgian football. It was, and still for many, particularly in the Walloon side of things, is still the biggest fixture. But, you know, because of the state that both clubs are in, and the fact that neither club has done anything for as long as anybody can remember now, it just, you know, it has no meaning other than to, you know, the hardcore fans of really both clubs anymore. And I kind of find that a bit sad, but I suppose it speaks to the pivot, you know, historically as well of, you know, Walloon football, you know, being on top in Belgium for a long time historically, and then you get the cultural shift where Flemish clubs start to do better, which reflects other things, you know, wider things going on in Belgian society as well, not just football. But yeah, it's a rich historical fixture which has kind of, you know, just little fire about it of any meaning anymore. But, you know, all it takes is a very small thing for that to turn, and who knows, maybe something amazing will happen this weekend. We'll be talking about it, you know, for the whole of next week's episode.
Maybe they could just bring Stephen Defoe along as a pundit or something, just stick him out in the middle and just see what happens. That could get people going, get the atmosphere riled up. Who knows? Well, let's move on from Anderlecht, because we might be talking even more about them next week if he gets sacked. And this game we might be talking about for all the wrong reasons, but hopefully for the right reasons. But we'll see. We'll quickly touch on European football, and then we'll kind of talk a bit of like airy-fairy transfer stuff. Club last week got the win that they needed against Khairat Almaty. They still need to win again, basically, this week if they want to get through. They face Marseille at home. Marseille, who also need to win to guarantee that they stay in the qualification for the next round. I think as well, guys, we'll probably not talk too much about this now. I think we can kind of have a European debrief next week when we see kind of how the lay of the land is and all that. Union didn't do as badly against Bayern as many people would have kind of expected. It was just a bit of frustration for them to lose 2-0. By no means a bad result. It's just a frustrating result that this is the time of the kind of the league phase that you're playing Bayern Munich. Like, it's just not the time you want to be playing them when you're desperate for points. They can still qualify from what like I can work out, but I don't know what results need to go their way and all that sort of stuff. Like, it gets to this point and it's just so messy, isn't it? Kind of working it all out. Genk are through, so we have at least one team through to the next round of a European thing. So we'll kind of see who they get and kind of preview that and everything. But I don't know if you guys had anything you want to touch on the European side of things, because I'm just disappointed that we haven't been able to have any Conference League action. I think it really has kind of has hindered kind of are my kind of not my interest in European football, but I just love watching a bit of Conference League, and watching a Belgian team in the Conference League is always really entertaining, and I've really missed it this year.
Yeah, I've moaned what feels like a fair bit about Ben's point there, just because it's still a sore point. It still pushes my buttons actually when I think about that. Funnily enough, I mentioned it earlier in this episode as well to kind of prove that point. Just nice to have a slightly more positive week. It's been a wee while since we've had a mostly positive week, I think, from a European perspective as well. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see who Genk do get in the knockout stages, yeah. And also nice for our Joris to have, at least one positive crumb just to kind of hold in his hand at the moment.
Even though the game itself was maybe not the main highlight of that evening, to be honest.
Yeah, there was.
Just want to point out, just for the sake of it as well, being very petty as well, that Genk on its own actually got as many points as all the Dutch sides in the Europa League so far. But yeah, okay, there's more to say about anything around that game, and well, obviously some Genk fans also not far off blame, but also the last thing has not been said anyway for that game off the pitch, because of the reception of the Genk fans and the reaction on what some idiots have done, but not even that. Okay, I don't know. I can't go too deep in it, I guess, because I wasn't there. But and obviously, what I hear from either sides is mainly quite subjective. But there's there are some questions to be said about the organization. Let's put it that way, and let's see what comes out of it. But there's anyway something coming out of that, maybe for both sides, because both sides also had some warnings already from before. So for next European games, if there will even be away fans, possible, most likely not. Actually, I'm assuming for Genk, because they were a bit on a warning list, or like on the and yeah. In Utrecht as well. Also, Genk still have a slight chance if they win, of course, to even skip the next round and go through to the actual next round. I guess the next round is more like a preliminary round again, but they need to win, and some results need to go their way, and it's not very likely, looking at the fixture list, that will happen. But it's football; you never know. Some surprises may happen, and one other factor that still might play a role in that, which is ironically also involving Utrecht, is like the Utrecht-Lyon game that Lyon won, and Lyon are actually out of sight for Genk. That also still has where Lyon have actually played a player that was not eligible to play, so that the final decision on what's happening there is not been taken. So Lyon might lose 3 points, and that might be one side additional side that gets into the mix in there. But okay, that's a side note. Sorry for that. It's also not so relevant for our podcast maybe, but it might become so. That's an advanced warning if something happens. But I do think actually, that final sentence should really come soon as well. Probably before the game or around the game, before the draw of the next round at least, I'm assuming. So that would be this week.
That feels like one of those ones they just kick it to after the game and hope that it doesn't affect anything, isn't it? Like one of those, like, oh, just hope we can just knock them off 3 points and it's fine, and like no one really notices and everything's fine. But if you field an ineligible player, like every good football manager knows that, like, you just can't do that. Like.
It's the most likely scenario, though, that like if Lyon win that next game anyway, it doesn't matter either way.
Irrelevant. But that's when then they'll be like, "I'll just take those 3 points," and everyone's unhappy but also happy. Transfer window. Let's talk transfer window. It's been intriguing. It's been interesting. It's been quiet on some fronts, which isn't surprising. I think Scott, before we recorded, you mentioned obviously about the TV money and the kind of uncertainty around structure of the league and all that sort of stuff. And I think you're so right, that has played a massive is a massive factor in kind of how teams have approached this season, which will be really frustrating for some teams because they're now looking at this season being like, this was the year. If we just pushed the boat out slightly, like they have to go crazy, but if we just pushed it out slightly, we could have taken advantage of the whole heap of averageness that we're seeing. And I think we kind of all agreed that the level of the Pro League this year definitely feels like it's dropped. The entertainment level hasn't. Like, I think the entertainment's still been really high, but the kind of overall quality level has probably dropped a little bit. So before we started recording, I asked you guys to pick a team that you think should be more active within the next couple of days up to the transfer window closes. I think we've probably got teams that are pretty predictable for most people, but we can talk about a couple of others as well if we get onto it. But I'll start with you, Scott, because I can see you first on my screen out of my left eye. Who have you gone for? Why have you gone for them? And yeah, I think the team you're about to say is one people probably expect me to say, because I always talk about this team.
Yeah, regular listeners will know with that hint that I'm going to name Leuven at this point. I'm looking at you. Yeah, they're getting dragged into a shit show down there at the moment. They're not playing that badly, in truth. They are playing well enough to probably get some points out of games, even if it is just a lot of draws. Not necessarily wins, such are the margins, as we know. But the point is they're not, and that's why they're getting sucked into this situation. From a transfer perspective, I'd written down notoriously quiet, but actually they've, quiet, I think, has probably been a bit generous. It's literally been silent. Nobody has come in. Nobody nobody. It's tumbleweed stuff. And Leuven's recruitment is always a bit odd. Ben's talked about this a lot on a number of occasions in the past. It remains odd. Now, I don't buy the sort of squad stability argument, really. We're going to stick with that. We think we've got what we need. People aren't available at the right price, all of that sort of stuff. I think when you're in the situation they've been in for a while, I think you need to try and freshen things up. That's reason enough to bring in maybe 2 or 3 faces, just to keep people on their toes, actually, as well, from a motivation point of view. So I think there's lots of reasons why their inactivity is problematic and in real danger of compounding the fact that they're not picking up enough points. We know they've brought in a sports psychologist to work with them, which, to be fair to Leuven, I laughed at that. But lots of clubs do it, to be fair to Leuven, so it's not fair really to criticise them for it. I just find it amusing, as I've been saying recently, because they do have a T1 in Felix Mazu who has a real reputation for being, a good man manager and a motivator. So the fact that he needs somebody else on the staff really along that line, I find really, really interesting. So I wonder whether that was imposed upon him. Interesting side discussion there. But yeah, Leuven not doing enough, and only time will tell whether their inactivity in this window, and I don't really expect them to do anything. If they do, it might be one player that comes in right at the last minute. Probably not more than 2. Only time will tell whether that inactivity, has been justified. But it's a risky game they're playing. I think they'll probably pick up enough points to get them away from the worst case scenario, but they're going to be in that mix right until the end, which is what they don't want. And if anything, in recent years, the inactivity of recent years has taught them anything. And in relation to Ben's point about this is the season to just push the boat a wee bit, no matter who you are, actually, nothing from them. So yeah, they need to do better, I think. But they know that, and they're not the only side in that situation, as Joris was alluding to.
Yeah, and also in general, I think it's understandable that clubs don't do it, because I do think the whole TV deal collapsing was, to a certain extent, a surprise still, but was hanging over the heads anyway. And what was it, the format change and so on anyway, of which we probably also still will hear something more at some point. But anyway, how the format has been set up, it was less likely that teams go down, of course, so that for many teams, maybe they thought, okay, maybe let's not overspend, and then maybe we can do something more next season. Because of the TV deal collapse, that might also be on the another topic again, and another thing to do. But yeah, definitely one of those sites that are one of the obvious ones, I guess, that do need something still. Haven't done any transfers yet, so yeah, that says it all in a situation they're in. That's not a good sign, especially since they should have some money. I don't know how everything is going with like this renewed financial fair play things. Maybe they done some more, but I would doubt that they really have issues with that because of these owners. But it could be, of course. But yeah, nonetheless, I very much get that as well. Yeah, I guess I'll immediately add mine, which is kind of in the same boat, more or less, despite getting a point last week in the very last second to everyone's fun enjoy. but yeah, it is certainly I believe it's the exact same amount of points, or at least they're really in that region with Leuven, and yeah, that they didn't do that much. Of course, they got Van Zer already, but it hasn't really kicked on yet. Maybe that can still change. Of course, he is lacking some match rhythm, but he was also already injured, so that the early signs are not positive, let's say. But now even in the last few days, or maybe even today, they had some action, of course, with Utgus going out. But that would be the area I would focus on, that they are really lacking someone even with him there, which even though they did get a player in, I'm not sure if he's actually his replacement, because position wise he actually played more as a left back, so more an Azinho replacement. He has featured as center back as well, but what was his name? Kondo, Geoffrey Kondo. That's interesting again, if that's the right one. And also, I mean, it kind of raises the question: is Nazinho in the end going to leave or not? To me, because there have been rumors with him for a while now, even a few windows already. So that might actually be more anticipation on that than really a placement for Utkus. But yeah, that's the thing that worries me most, because even in the game against Genk, who are didn't do enough with it, obviously, but you could see the plan to go behind the defense of Cercle, and that just worked. They didn't do enough with it afterwards, but that just so easy to do, and every side can do that. Every side knows it. Nazinho is, like, of course, one of their stronger players, or maybe currently even the best one they still have, but of course also in his back there are spaces to exploit, and the same goes for everywhere. And I mean, I think we're hitting that nail on the head already a long time. That defense, they do need some reinforcements there for sure. In attack, I'm still also not completely sure, but Ngura is doing better than last season, but he's just not the natural goal scorer, which is what they kind of need. But yeah, they seem to all be pitching in once in a while, so that's not too bad. In the midfield is the area I'm least worried about. And okay, Magnussen as goalkeeper is generally also not the worst option to have there, especially in the position they are. But yeah, I would definitely tighten up that defense, or try to at least. Despite the some movement being there, I would encourage them to do something more. Also talking about, I'm just gonna leave it here. I'm not gonna talk much more, but there's another side in that same game that I also would like to do some transfers, because they're together with Leuven, the only side to not have brought anyone in. And I know there are probably not so good reasons behind that, but that's. I think that we can expect more outgoings from him than incomings, to be honest, in the upcoming few days.
Do you know, I really felt for, Joris is mentioning that late equaliser there for Cercle against this side this weekend. I kind of felt for Nicky Hyam with the camera right in his face to capture the moment of that reaction, which kind of said it all, particularly when in the days leading up to that game, he'd been talking about the basic things that they needed to change and get right. So players reacting faster and taking responsibility. And when you look at that equaliser, they lose the two defensive headers in that phase of play. And then the third attempt to clear the ball, I mean, fair play to Gerkens, actually. I think it's a really, he gets there first and he's instinctive, and it's just a really good finish. But you get three chances to clear there, and all of them. So nobody taking responsibility at all. Was just, the look in his poor Nicky Hyam's face, he was just exasperated. It's like three examples of what he'd been talking about all week in the same phase of play.
should have seen my face. I should have filmed it myself.
Joris cam, we'll set that up for the next few weeks, definitely.
Or do that terrible thing that Sky have started doing in England where they lock people in a box and they don't know the score until the end of the game and they just reveal it to them. It's awful, but maybe we'll do it to Joris. But you'll probably know it's going to be 1-1 or we'll just...
if it's like that, it's less disappointing, to be honest. You can better let me watch until the 90th minute and then see the score after stoppage time. And that'd
be a great thought experiment to do this year. If a Genk fan could only watch the game up until the 85th minute and never knew what the final result was, doesn't know where they are on the table, you'd get to the end and be like, we've won the league. We're like streets ahead of everyone else. And you to find out you're not. You're kind of down the bottom.
There are probably stats that would also contradict that anyway. Yeah. I didn't look them up. I'm sure there are, but okay, they're useless stats anyway. So
yeah, someone put one of those out the other day. They were like, if Man United had just beaten this team, and this team, and this team, and this team, they'd be top of the league. It's like, oh, really? If they'd won all their games, they'd be top of the league. Like, who'd have thought? It's funny how football works, isn't it? If you win all
they say games, it's a simple game.
I was like, come on, let's... Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the amount of fingers I just counted there is actually the amount of players that Leuven signed in the summer, like, to get back to them. I think they signed, 9 players in the summer. And you're just... yeah, apart from... Dusen's been good. I'll give him that. I think he's been a good signing.
Yeah.
And Lukasz Lakomi's been good.
That actually sums it up if you say that.
Dusen's been their best signing. Lakomi Dusen's been good. Tech Lab, for some reason, I've always thought he was like 22, 23, but he's like 27. Don't think he's too great. Brian Kayo hasn't played a game. Traore's been he's been given a go, but he's only 19, so what do you expect, sort of thing. And it's just it's always felt to me, and I don't want to keep going on it, but it just feels like it's just like random signings. They're just kind of like throwing darts at random players and being like, if we just sign this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, and just go, this head coach, just have these players and kind of just do something with them, and I'm sure it'll be fine. And here's 25 central midfielders that are really, really good, but you've got to try and fit them in to all your team. And I don't think financially they've barely spent anything, judging by kind of in terms of fees on players, of those players. Lots of them were free transfers. Lots of them, Dusen was not going to be an expensive transfer like that. They got a lot of money in for Banzuzi. They got a bit of money in for Brout Bruns, who was another one of those random signings, who actually has gone and done quite well since leaving. So it's kind of like, what was the problem there? Was it you? Was it him? So yeah, I don't really want to talk too much more about them because I'll just get frustrated. And then
that's the second time you lie about it. You also mentioned it already. This is your favorite pastime activity to bash Leuven in their transfer or lack of thereof. Yeah.
I feel like I've said this so many times. And there's another team I'm going to go at anyway that I've started to go at, so I'll go at them. It's not Circular, but I will. I think I mentioned it a couple of. What was it, weeks ago? Well, it would have been a long time ago, wouldn't it, when I last actually spoke on the podcast about anything. But they signed Lucas Pellin last January, and I think he made a massive difference because you're an experienced defender. You've just gotten rid of your most experienced defender at 25. And yeah, you signed, like Joris said, you signed a left back who's clearly talented. Like Monaco apparently like the look of him and they scouted him. So I don't doubt their ability to scout young players. I don't have a problem with, and I think a lot of the young players they do sign will turn out to be good. That's not the issue. It's just you need someone with experience at the back because you picked up that point, but Dender picked up a point, and I don't think Dender aren't done yet, and I think they've got to realise that Dender aren't done yet because they're going to just be scrapping because they've got nothing to lose. If they go finish bottom, they finish bottom, and it's just okay, fine, whatever. Whereas if Circular finished bottom, it's like you were 2 years ago, you in European football, now you're bottom of the league. What is going on there? And Joris, you're completely right about this, getting in behind them, because that's what Genk were doing to them in the first half of the game I went to see at the Amber Idol a couple of months ago. And it was exactly the same this weekend. And I'm just like, what are we... And then Genk stopped doing it. I don't think Circular made any adjustments this time, and Genk just stopped. And you're like, just stick it over the top. You're getting in every single time. So that's a coaching thing. That's not necessarily a player thing, because there's no way if I'm a player, the ball goes over my head that many times, I'm not going to be I'm just going to sit back. I remember I played for a team and I was a striker, and because I was 6'1", he was like, you're going to play centre back. And I was like, I can't head the ball. and I can't defend, but fine, I'll play at the back. And he wanted me to play a high line, and the ball just kept going over my head because I couldn't head the ball. And I was like, can I sit back because I'm just getting mullered? And he was like, no, like, I want you to stay really high. So I just kept getting mullered. I was just like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, you think this is going to work, it clearly didn't. So, yeah.
Quality bit of coaching, that. Coaches
to be fair,
in front of their eyes.
He then converted me into a box-to-box midfielder. So I was like, okay, fine, this is a bit more... I'm a bit more comfortable just running around up and down rather than... Yeah.
And also, to be fair to Cercle Brugge, but this might be in the end maybe a problem but in the future, but we'll see. But they're actually on a good run. They haven't lost their last 4 games now. But I'm already, even in that good run, I'm already feel like, is this maybe more poison than cure for them at the end of the season?
Exactly. Like, is it? Yeah, it's such a tricky one, isn't it? I think they've got to go and find some experience at the back. Just get some experience at the back, like in some shape or form. And that's kind of similar to the team that I'm going to talk about, which is Westerlo. I had a go at them at the beginning of the season because they had 5,000 strikers. They've cut down a couple of those, but they've still got a couple there. And I feel like they should have shifted again. Like, what's Kian Vassen doing there? Just move him on. Like, he's clearly not good enough for you guys. You don't really play him. Just like move him on. They got a Kosovan striker who I completely forgot they signed on loan. He's just there. Do you remember him? Like, Bajupi? Couldn't tell you a thing. Like, he's just I don't know what's going on there. But then they've got some really exciting players as well. And it's just like, they're that team, aren't they? That they sacked Tibby Simons, they sacked Jonas De Rock because they didn't reach the kind of the place that the ownership thought they could reach. This was the year to get there, and they haven't got there because they're, like I said, they're 5th from bottom again, and it's just like same old story. And it's hard because I don't want them to go out and spend loads of money because I feel like they do that anyway. They just go and buy loads and loads of teenagers as kind of their kind of modus operandi, and I think they need to they need to bring in some experience at the back. But okay, one of my things for them this winter window was to sign someone to replace Emin Bayram and Haspalat, because I feel like those 2 guys are your 2 kind of... I think they're the 2 players most likely to leave in the summer because I think they're 2 of their better players. I think Bayram's been actually quite good at the back, and he's only 22 and he's Turkish. Like, we all know what that means. Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, Besiktas, like Trabzonspor. Trabzonspor will sign anyone from the Belgian Pro League. Like, they love spending all their money in the Belgian Pro League, so they're probably going to come in for him. Haspalat as well has been really good for them. So I was like, this could be a good January window to try and kind of find the backup replacement for those guys. Get them in now, like all the good teams in Belgium are doing, and then you give them a little bit of time to like acclimatise. So then they hit the ground running in kind of the next time and stuff. So that was kind of my thing with Vesta. I thought they should sign kind of a couple of backups or kind of the next guys in those positions. But I don't know with them as well. Like they're one of my teams. They could easily drop into that bottom 4. They won't go down, but they could drop into the bottom 4 and it'll just be like another wasted season. And then they'll sack. I keep forgetting who the head coach is there. Chalai. They'll sack Chalai in the summer because he didn't do what they wanted him to do, and then they'll bring in someone else, and then they'll finish 5th bottom. Then they'll sack him. And it'll just be like a cycle and repeat until they look at kind of the overall picture of what they're trying to do. And by the time these kids get good, they'll be sold anyway. That's kind of the problem. I think there's a couple of other... This is what we were saying about Antwerp, I think a couple of months ago, like Overmars' big grand vision. It doesn't work because you kind of are predicting when these players are going to hit their peaks, and they're all going to hit their peaks at a different time. They're not going to all peak at the same time when you win the league. That's just never going to happen. And if it does, it's an absolute fluke. Like, you just can't predict it like that. So, yeah, that was my thing. I think Centurion were another team that, like, when I saw the players leaving, I was like, oh, they need to replace them. But they've been really good at just going and getting replacements instantly. It's like Van Helden left when it got the defender. Ferrari was obviously, there was that link that he was going. They waited, then they signed the replacement. Mechelen looked like they're doing the same with Lauerbach. He's going to go, but they're signing the replacement. And that's like, when I say like push the boat out, it's kind of like for Mechelen, maybe last year, I feel like they could sell Lauerbach and then just be like, oh, we'll just keep the money. We won't reinvest it. We'll just kind of like, we'll be fine. But it's like, no, actually, we've got a chance to do something this year. So let's go and spend it on his replacement and bring someone in. And the kid's got a good record, the guy they're bringing in from the 2nd division of Dutch football. Whether that will translate, you just don't know. But are there any other clubs that you guys think should be a little bit more active?
Well, I'm just gonna comment on Westerlo quickly as well. Bayram, of course, they bought him from Galatasaray, so they do know him for sure. But whether they already want him back, you never know. But indeed, with Turkish players, they don't often excel outside of Turkey. Let's put it that way. And then they might come back, and he's not doing too bad. I'm maybe less convinced actually, but that actually reinforces that they need some players at the back as well, maybe. And ironically, one of my player of the week, but I won't touch it that much yet, is actually one of their winter signings.
What a segue! What a segue!
You got to go straight in. Go straight in with that, Joris. Let's go straight to player of the week with that one. You set it up perfectly.
All right, yeah. So Shunsuke Saito, that would be this as well. He had got an assist, got his first start as well against Mechelen. He got an assist for their goal against for Ferry against Mechelen, of course, and that just showing quite some promising early signs in there as well. Looks like very well. They already have some of those, so that's a good point, of course. So whether they really solve some things, but like a good wing player that can dribble and has some pace and in this case, at least for the goal, it had a good oversight as well, and like the good overview and like the good decision making there as well. Let's see if he can continue that, of course. I have some other, when we actually go to the players of the week, maybe, because this will be still a short segment, I'm presuming. I will touch on some other things of this game day as well, but he's definitely one of those that really I wanted to give a shout out, and actually my player of the week anyway. I might give some other mentions, but not necessarily to players.
Yeah, no, that's a great shout. I feel like players with Saito, and it's like if a player's called Sano, I feel like they're always good players. Like whenever I see a Saito or Sano, I feel like they're always good players. There's other names like if I see a Cisse, I'm like, he's probably a good player. Like anyone with the last name Cisse, they're usually good players. There's just something about those names. Saito as well. Like I always think, yeah, good player. Sano, good player. Scott, who are you picking?
My player of the week is a club player. It's a 20-year-old Serbian midfielder, Aleksandar Stankovic, who actually has been very good recently. He's probably been one of the few club players who looked like he was up for any games and wanted to make things happen. 4 goals in his last 5. A couple of goals this weekend, of course. 2 chances created, 3 shots, 5 line-breaking passes throughout the game. Just impact player this weekend, really, at a time when kind of club need it. So, he's doing the one thing that Leko and Verheiga would like everybody else to do, and that's taking a little bit of responsibility. But yeah, he's been good recently. So it's not really just off the back of this weekend, but yeah, player of the week stroke last 4 weeks perhaps for that particular club.
I think you could definitely argue he is definitely literally the player of the week because he was great in Europe as well, wasn't he? Like he was great against Almaty, scored a fantastic goal, and yeah, he looks like he's really taking his opportunity to start and like have an impact on the game. And fair play to him. He looks a good player. Again, another name that if you see a Stankovic, you always think they're a good player. I don't think I've ever seen a bad Stankovic. Willing to be corrected, but yeah, you're trying to think, but you can't think of a bad Stankovic. They just don't exist. My player of the week came from that Leuven Union game. Takehiro Akimoto, OH Leuven defender. Who'd have thought we'd pick an OH Leuven defender as a player of the week? Not me, that is for sure. But I thought he was great. He put himself about. I think he won the most tackles. Yeah, he won the most tackles according to FootMob in the game. He was fouled the most times as well, which is a bit of a weird stat. But I think when I was watching it, he's like making these like mad driving runs from the back, and I just love it. I love it when a centre back just gets that kind of air of just I'm just going to go and run with the ball and just see how far it can take me. I remember I played with someone on Saturday football, one of our defenders, David Doe, used to pick it up and just do the length of the pitch and then shoot and miss and run back. And I was like, this is fantastic. Like, this is what we want to see. So yeah, Akimoto, I thought he had a really, really good game. Actually, like Scott, you mentioned it, like they haven't been playing badly. I thought they played really well against Union as well. Like they really kind of, they did have chances, like Sherpan had to make a couple of saves as well. At the back, Akimoto, Pleertinks as well, they played quite well. Leersen was good in goal. Like, it was an entertaining game. I think this frustration is they just can't score. But yeah, Akimoto, fantastic performance. Before we go to the CPL, Joris, you've teased that you had a couple of others, so I'll let you get them off your chest.
Well, not really necessarily others players, like I said, but more like moments to give a shout. Well, okay, one player we have to give it a shout. Okay, Ben mentioned him briefly at the beginning, but Kanga, of course, scored a hat-trick against his former club, nonetheless, as well. So that's really, definitely worth a shout. But that. I was assuming one of you would have picked him up actually for that, but maybe the Sandar were too poor in that game to really take someone from it as well. And then I just wanted to give a shout out once again to Charleroi. I teased for that before as well in this episode. Once again, maybe I'm giving them a lot of praise now in the last few weeks even, but just a brilliant first goal, brilliant attack. Not well defended by Antwerp, especially at the end either, but nonetheless, a really good goal also from Schadler, who now scored 2 in the last 2 games. Maybe he's going through a bit more also in the goal scoring, because he has been decent for Charleroi actually before already as well. But maybe it doesn't last as long. Maybe it does. But just go watch that goal if you didn't yet, because that whole attack is really, really nice and well played out from Charleroi, and exploiting. They can play into spaces for sure, so you should not give them, and that's exactly what Antwerp did, because it could have been a lot more than 0-2 actually in that game either as well.
I was thinking about this weekend as well. Actually, you've made a good point about how they can play into spaces and like use these wide players that they've got. And when Charleroi were good, like previously, they just had those 2 really good wingers, didn't they? And like in Fall and Golizadze, and they would just provide goals and provide assists and stuff. And Bernier and Gueon, they're not the same players as those 2 guys. Like Fall was just an absolute monster. He was like really, really physical. Golizadze was a bit more technically gifted in that, but it's just there's something about some teams just have that archetype, don't they? Like in Charleroi, it's physical strikers and wingers. Like when they've got good wingers and they've got physical strikers, they usually do pretty well. Schiedler's a physical striker. They've got the wingers. Fluke's a winger, but he's kind of playing in the middle, but he can drift out wide and stuff like that. Like, and they're really entertaining to watch for a place that's usually called the most boring and ugly city in Europe. Footballing wise, they play beautiful football. So it's the complete opposite.
Once again, I caveat again though, like there is this really great record they now have against many of the big sides, which you touched on last week. Of course, they do give that space. So we have to also see for longer term if that actually is if they can manage when they have less space to play in or have to create those spaces themselves. But so far so good for Hans Cornelius for sure.
Definitely, yeah, he's having a great start to his life as Charleroi head coach. Scott, we actually have some CPL stuff going on right now, and it is definitely going to impact what we were going to talk about. So I'll hand over to you quickly, and then we can dive into it, because, a bit of a shocking result going on with minutes left as we speak.
Yeah, well, normally at this point I would recap the scores, but because we've already had a round of fixtures this past weekend, and we've got nearly a full round of fixtures going on as we speak, a couple of fixtures tomorrow night as well as of recording. I suppose the big news before we touch on some of the intrigue from this evening is really the story that didn't get as much coverage as it probably deserved to, partly because it's a CPL story, and that's the news that Lokeren now have a transfer ban as well. So there are 2 sides in the Challenger Pro League currently serving under a transfer ban. Molenbeek, who haven't addressed their situation fully yet, and Lokeren. The Lokeren one's interesting, I think, because that's partly linked to old creditors still in pursuit of them, as well as kind of some of their current financial issues as well. And an attempt by FIFA, or should I say a suggestion rather than an attempt, that perhaps they should be summarily thrown out of the league anyway, because of their financial situation. So things not looking too great for them. They're in the huff at the moment, Lokeren anyway. The fallout from the Ryan Angelan mini saga is still something that they seem to kind of want to talk about. But yeah, Beveren are sitting in a position just now where it might be the greatest cock up of all time if they blow it now, because it looks very much as if Kortrijk, unless something miraculous happens in the next few seconds, have dropped more points, which gives Beveren the chance to extend their lead and go pretty much within 4 or 5 games. If they can win those of being back in the big time. But yeah, some interesting results going on out there this evening. And another thing that I think probably worth touching on, Jonas de Rock, who's not been enjoying himself too much at Club Next, back-to-back wins now, including the one in the past weekend there against Olympic Charleroi, which is arguably the more significant of the 2 wins, being down at the bottom of the table. So things looking a little bit better for them. You know, we spoke a little bit earlier in the season about Club Next and the fact that they were massively underachieving. You know, and it was a bit of a mystery as to why. Still remains a mystery because they should be doing better than they are. Look to have 2 wins on the bounce now. But yeah, I mean this league's still interesting despite the fact it has and is going to have a runaway winner in the end.
That's for sure, but also don't forget about Olympic Charleroi, who also cannot do any transfers. So there's 3 clubs in that scene even. So Scott lost count there. I'm not blaming him for that because there's so many, which we can laugh about, but of course is actually quite a serious matter. Loke had to let go of 9 and maybe it's better that he left because I know that's also something we want to touch on as well. Again, scored already his first goal and. Well, so far, the Patro game is close. Oh, no, it has finished. They won against Olympic as well now. So they are now joined third together with Lommel and Beerschot. So that actually might be early signs that they are on a good track. And maybe we were quite off last week already that they would not realistically have a chance to be in a good position. Okay, maybe... Straight promotion seems difficult, although Kortrijk are dropping some points here and there lately, as today as well. But still, 7 points is quite a big gap. But they're definitely in the race for current as it currently stands for this promotion playoff in their case, of course. And he scored his first goal already as well last weekend in his second game for Patro. That might be good for Loker then that they left him, so at least a big contract off the books. Arguably their biggest. We don't actually know the books, but I'm assuming that the books are their accounts. But I'm assuming that probably was the main big earner there. So that's definitely something. Things are heating up behind the 2 leaders, and Kortrijk might potentially still be sucked in a nasty race, and that would still be quite a cock up as well if they actually do, but definitely behind those 2 for before the playoffs even starts between them, the teams are really fighting for their spots. RFC Liège is also only 2 points behind these 3 teams that I just mentioned as well. Interesting to follow up. And at the bottom, indeed, Club Next getting two wins on the bounce. Joris de Rook needed those wins, I'm sure. They're not bottom anymore as of literally a few minutes now. Not that most likely, at least, that will not matter anyway, as we know, with all the probably no possible relegation for the youth size. But okay. They are not the rock bottom anymore and are climbing up the tables and climbing up the ranks slowly. And are in a good form.
Yeah, I think I always presumed that the more time Jonas de Rock spent there, they would get better because I just think he's a good coach and I just can't see why that wouldn't work and why it wouldn't kind of line up. So I think clearly they're starting to kind of gel a bit more under him maybe and that sort of stuff. So I think, that it kind of trends in a way that you'd expected it to trend. It'd been very surprising if they'd kept being pretty crap and just kind of ended up doing rubbish. But yeah, the top end's just wild because, like you said, that Kortrijk obviously lose. Lom will have that chance to close the gap. They lose to RC Liège, who are now closing in on kind of those sides as well. Like it's all really bunching up, and Kortrijk do have to be really careful. I think we can. What was that? 12 games to go I think it is, if I've counted correctly. Are Brethren really going to give up 16 points in 12 games? That'd be mad. Especially when you consider they literally haven't lost a game this season. So they could even drop a couple and they should be fine. It'd be nice to welcome them back. And yeah, it's interesting because you guys mentioned about the transfer bans. I think and the kind of, we've talked about Patro last week about like how can they afford what they're apparently paying Nainggolan? Do you know what I mean? And it's just, we've heard it from Alex Mazur when they were down there. We've heard it from Antoine as well. Like the finances involved with getting out of that league are really, really difficult, and like you have to, the kind of margins for error are so slim, because you obviously, if you have ambitions of getting promoted, you need to spend money. But if you don't get promoted, like you're trying to live within your means, but also if you've got the ambition, it's kind of balancing those two things. And how long has it taken Beveren to get out of this? Like they got relegated the first season we did the podcast, was it, or was it the second? I can't quite remember which one it was, but they haven't been back since the first or second season we did the podcast. Kortrijk obviously have danced with it, and I think it shows the importance of, you kind of want to bounce up back. Like if Kortrijk can bounce back straight away, they'll be pretty chuffed, but the other teams kind of chasing them down. And yeah, I do have a feeling Patro are gonna potentially push them all the way and be the team to push them all the way. And I mean, yeah, like Nainggolan scored, got an assist in that game that he scored, and he got an assist tonight as well. Like, you know, when it's just like we said, I just felt like it would go well until it didn't go well. At the moment, it's definitely going to be going well. So it'll be really interesting to see. They don't play each other though, which I think is a big factor, because Patro obviously played Kortrijk a couple of weeks ago and did beat them. But I don't think they play each other again until the end of the season, so you don't get that chance to kind of close the gap even further. But it's just going to be exciting, isn't it? That kind of running, and if you're in that 3 to 6 spot, you must be looking at Dender and thinking like, I think we can beat them. Like these teams should be looking at it. Not like 100%. We're way better than them, but like we have a chance to beat this Dender team. Like we can do this sort of thing. Like you've got to be going into it with a little bit of confidence, unless you're Kortrijk and you slip in to the playoffs. Do you know what I mean? Like what's the psychological impact of that? I find that fascinating as well. Like we kind of see like how Molenbeek have just completely fallen off a cliff after they got pipped just at the end and then they didn't make it through. I mean, then Texter did his hilarious like sacking and hiring thing, didn't he? Which was just an absolute farce. But there's something about playoffs and promotion races and stuff like this. And I think we can call Beveren up. I think if they mess this up, then they don't deserve to get promoted. But I just can't see it happening.
Yeah, I think it would be. That's what I'm saying. I think it would be pretty extraordinary now. I mean, even if there's a big dip in form and it becomes a slow canter to the finish line, it would be extraordinary. I have to say though that I think for me, one of my favourite fixtures in the entire season is that big playoff. Between the side that wins the playoff in the CPL and the Jupiler Pro League side, that is always just a crazy fixture, both for positive and negative reasons, and it's always just fascinating to see what happens. Rarely is there much good football played, obviously, because of what's at stake, but it's always fascinating to watch that unfold, and it's not going to be any more different this year. But I agree with Ben. I think there'll be a few sides down in the CPL who probably will fancy their chances against, well, should it be Dender, they'll fancy their chances, but equally I can see why Dender would fancy their chances against anyone down there. So it just underlines why it's such an interesting fixture, that one, and deserves more attention. But that's why people come to us, because we're giving it attention.
Yeah, I would say Beveren need like literally 2 or 3 wins and they're actually over the line. Based on results of the last few seasons as well, even though there are slightly more games this season as well, of course. So indeed, that's why I say 3 maybe still. Otherwise, pretty good enough.
From a coaching perspective, guys, looking at Beveren at the moment, I'm looking at them going, surely the target in the dressing room now is obviously, promotion is the main target, it goes without saying, but the other one is go and win this title, get promoted and do it unbeaten. So you can turn around and say, okay, we took a little bit longer to get back, but see when we did it, the best possible way. I'd be looking at it like that way, because that's very achievable. Saying the guy who made a statement at the start that, might have reverse jinxed somebody, nobody knows where I live except who I'm talking to here. I'm in very good company. They do. So, they can send someone round my way if it's all my fault. But yeah, what a great incentive to go and win the league unbeaten. And yeah, amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, that may as well be your aim at this point. I'm so intrigued to see what they're going to do when they get promoted, though, because that team is really experienced. Experienced. Christian Bruhl's at 37. Is he still going to do it? I don't know. Lennart Martin's obviously 33. There's lots of 30-year-olds in there. So they've got the experience to get promoted, and it's then do you pivot, or do you just slowly blood? You've got to blood some younger players in there. But at this point, if you're a fan, you don't really care. Do you? If you're winning the league and you're going unbeaten, just enjoy it. At the end of the day, you can worry about signing the new players and young players in the summer. They've clearly worked out that this is the best way to get promoted, and it's definitely working, and you can't really blame them for that, because at the end of the day, that is what they've wanted to do for a very, very long time. We're long overdue a trip to Beveren, that's for sure. We've kind of been meaning to go for a long time, so it seems a bit poor of us to only go when they come back into the Pro League, doesn't it? But we can only apologise for that. I think that probably just about does it for this week's episode, unless you guys have anything else you need to add before we head off.
No, I just was about to say the same thing about Beveren as well, indeed. So enjoy it now the big overhaul we probably talk about in summer.
Yeah, pre-season preview. And it'll be nice for them that we'll be talking about them in the Pro League one rather than the Challenger Pro League one this time around. As always, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you're a regular listener and you haven't rated us yet, please do. It really does help kind of spread the word about Belgian football, both top and second tier. If you've already rated and you want to support us even more, you can donate to us at our Buy Me a Coffee site as well. But yeah, I think that's about it for this week, guys. Hope you have a good week. Joris, enjoy European football. Scott, fingers crossed, another Celtic Genk game will be on the cards, or another trip for Genk to Glasgow. Be quite nice. We said before they had the Sackathon or whatever it was called with Rangers. So they're due playing another Scottish side in crisis at the moment in Celtic. So yeah, that could be quite a funny season to have for the Genkies. We'll recap all the European stuff next week, but in the meantime, I hope everyone enjoys their week, enjoy the football this weekend, and we'll speak to you again very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.